So just for the recording, we have 9 members present and 1 member, Maxter, that is currently not on our Zoom.
Okay, thanks so much. So if you want to do the acceptance of the agenda.
No opposition.
No opposition. Okay, fantastic. And then if we can do the welcome and introductions.
Sure. So we don't have any new commissioners this time. Our newest commissioner, Commissioner Alexander, was here for our last meeting, so we do have a guest presenter, David Friedman from Desert Community Energy. We'll give him a chance to introduce himself when we get to his item very shortly. But otherwise, I think we're good.
Excellent. So if we want to move on to public comments.
Great. We'll start with public comments here in the room. Would you like to come up tonight?
Sure. Here, I'll just sit next to you.
Thanks, maybe.
Good to see you. And I'll borrow Kathy's mic for a moment, if that's okay, Kathy. Good evening, Commissioners. Paul Henriksen, Palm Springs volunteer. I understand that there's a subcommittee of the Sustainability Commission that's focusing on water. And I'd like to stay in touch with those commissioners that are involved in that, because I'm concerned about our aquifers and so forth. Working with the city to try and get some of our major properties at the north end on septic, off of septic and onto sewer. Also surprised and discovered there's a major illegal junkyard with nearly 1,000 vehicles sitting right on top of our aquifer and literally like a couple hundred feet away from our major percolation ponds, which are the imported water percolation ponds that recharge our aquifers. So I'm working, it turns out that's about 100 feet outside of the city limits. So I'm now working with the county on that. And it's things like that that I want to talk with that subgroup on water about that. And there's more to it than that. So if someone can keep me in the loop or reach out to me on that when it comes. And then it was just another reminder to please keep the ball in the air, focusing on smoke-free Palm Springs. That's everything. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll now turn to our members of the public who are joining us on Zoom. Do we have any of our members of the public who'd like to provide a 3-minute public comment this evening? If so, please feel free to raise your hand on Zoom. Okay, Jennifer Prado, you are our public commenter on Zoom. Feel free to activate your video if you'd like, but no pressure. And we'll go ahead and give you 3 minutes for your public comment. Let me see if I can, before you start, let me see if I can make your video a little bit bigger for everyone. Just give me 1 sec. So everybody can see it.
Can I start?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Jennifer Prado. I am the site director of the Urban Conservation Corps of the Inland Empire Coachella Valley program. We're a program of the Southern California Mountains Foundation, and we're a paid job training program for young people aged 18 to 26. We cover the entire Coachella Valley, and we pay young people to essentially work in the fields of sustainability and local natural resource conservation. So I just wanted to let the commission know that we are here and we're available if there are projects that involve pretty much anything regarding sustainability, public education, recycling. We've been training in community composting, and then we also work on trails and do all sorts of, cleanups under contracts, things like that. So we are available, and there is currently a grant opportunity that requires a city involvement if the city's interested in working with us on that. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. And I know we've been playing phone tag. I apologize for missing each other last week. But thank you for joining our meeting today. Okay. Any other members online who would like to provide public comment today? Okay, hearing none, I will go ahead and close our public comment period.
Okay, so thanks everyone for the public comments. And then for the chair's report, it's nothing really. to go over this month, which we can move on to the election of chair and vice chair.
Great, okay, so, we previewed this a little bit at our last meeting. So as everybody remembers from last meeting, we've graciously had Commissioner Chair Forster and Commissioner Vice Chair Don Barrett, serve as our caretaker chairs and vice chairs, as we got everybody up to speed and getting to know the mechanics of the commission and different things like that. So it now being the start of the year, felt like a good time to revisit that interim nature. And so we'll have elections for chair and vice chair. And as we discussed the procedure at our last meeting, if you would like to be put forward, the best practice that other commissions use is for other commissioners to nominate someone, for those roles. And I think maybe we can start with anyone who, would like to put forth a nomination for chair. Okay, I'll start with, Commissioner Graham and then Commissioner Barrett.
6 months being into this committee, I've actually, this commission, I should say, I've actually, I'm astounded and very happy of the work that Roy has done within this commission, so I'm nominating Roy.
Okay, we have a nomination for Commissioner Clark.
Mhm.
Commissioner Barrett.
Similarly, I'm nominating Roy Clark for chair. Roy has been doing these things. He knows the ins and outs of the city and has the experience to help pull everything together and make it work. So I'm nominating Roy Clark.
Okay, so we have a nomination, 2 nominations for Commissioner Clark. Are there any other nominations that should be put to the board? Okay, Commissioner Clark, will turn to you first to confirm that you accept the nominations for running for chair, and if there's anything you'd like to share.
Yes, I do accept the nominations. Thank you very much. And I hope that my past experience on the commission, as chairperson and then being involved in a number of the major, activities that we've been involved in will be helpful going forward.
Great, okay, so let's go ahead and do a vote for the chair before we move on to vice chair. So I think we can probably do this by voice vote unless, former Commissioner Freeman thinks I can.
Since we're all in person,
Yeah.
I think a voice vote would be fine.
Okay, thank you. I have a parliamentary procedure expert here that I often rely on. So all in favor of Commissioner Clark, as chair? Please say aye. Any opposed? Okay, so it sounds like we've got everybody on board for Commissioner Clark as chair, so thank you. And now we'll turn to the election for vice chair. Do we have any nominations for vice chair?
Can I do that again?
If you want, go for it.
And the same thing. John, I would, you've come to me multiple times and answered my questions, and I so much appreciate it, and for the work that you put in also. So I'm nominating.
Okay, we have a nomination for Commissioner Barrett. Do we have any other nominations for vice chair? Okay, Commissioner Barrett, we'll turn to you to see if you accept the nomination and if there's anything you'd like to add.
I accept the nomination on the condition that I can hear what everyone says, but other than that, minor detail. That's a reason not to be chair. Thank you.
Okay, and we'll just do another quick voice vote. All in favor of Commissioner Barrett as vice chair, please say aye. Any opposed? Okay, great. That was quick and easy. So we'll go ahead and transition. Commissioner Forster, thank you so much for your service as chair, and getting everybody on board, and carrying us through this sort of hybrid and in-person environment as we've gotten back up to speed. Looking forward to continuing to working with you as commissioner.
Happy that?
Awesome. So we'll just pass the gavel that way unceremoniously. Ta-da, great. Okay. Okay, cool. So thank you, everyone. And now we'll move on. I'll just, since I've already got the mic on, I'm gonna move us to the next item if that's okay, Chair Clark. So we have a guest presentation today from David Friedman, who many of you may remember from when he joined us to talk about the REACH code for cannabis facilities earlier in the year. David served as our lead technical author on that potential project, which will be coming back to us in March as well, which David doesn't know, now he knows. And David served as a sustainability commissioner for 8 years, for 8 years, and was involved in a number of the projects that you all know and love, and is currently serving as the program manager for Desert Community Energy over at the Coachella Valley Association of Governments, which I'm sure he can explain why CVAG is where DCE lives, if anyone has that question. You know, the commission has benefited immensely from his service and we continue to benefit immensely from his work as DCE program manager, though I know his work-life balance does not feel the same way. So, David has offered to come and speak to us about DCE, kind of as an overview, so, you know, feel free to ask questions, and we'll ask that you hold the questions to the end of the presentation, so we can kind of do them all in one go. And with that, I'll pass it to David. Here, what would you rather do? Oh, let me use
Yeah.
that would help. Sorry. All the buttons are hidden.
Thank you, LP. First of all, congratulations, Chair Clark, Vice Chair Barrett. It's an honor to be back in front of you. It did take me a minute or two to remember that I needed to sit on this side of the table and not go to muscle memory to go over there. So it's wonderful to be back in the large conference room and to be presenting to you on what I think is one of the Sustainability Commission's great success stories for here in Palm Springs, Desert Community Energy. So first, a little bit of an introduction of what is community choice energy, and Desert Community Energy, or DCE, is part of that. So the history actually goes back 20 years, now more than 20 years. There's a piece of legislation called AB 117, which was passed by the legislature in 2013. And that was the beginning of various community choice energy programs in the state of California. Can't quite see that because I think it's just under the Zoom, but the first community choice aggregators was MCE, or Marin Clean Energy, and then it started snowballing around the Bay Area. And then the first one in Southern California is Lancaster Energy, just in North Los Angeles County. And then you could see that it really has continued. 2018 was really the largest year. And then you see DCE in 2020. So currently there are 24 community choice aggregators in California. And together we served in 2022, roughly about 14 million customers. And that represents 20% of the load share in California. So of all of the electricity use of the three investor-owned utilities, Edison in our area, then San Diego Gas and Electric down there, and in the Bay Area, Northern California, PG&E. And then of course you have LA, the Department of Water and Power, and then SMUD and a few others such as IID, but together DC represented all the community choice aggregators represented 20% of the total load in California. So where does Desert Community Energy come from? Well, it comes from literally from this table. It comes from the Sustainability Commission and the Sustainability Plan. I joined the commission in June of 2015. At that point, we were just starting. I think Chair Clark, you also were involved in those initial discussions. And then we worked on the sustainability plan, and it was approved by the city council at the June 2026 meeting. And because of all of the CCAs that were mushrooming all up and down the state of California, the Sustainability Commission, working with our consultant, said this would be something that would be good to have here in Palm Springs. So it went into the sustainability plan, and then it was approved unanimously by the city council in June 2019. So to sort of answer the city, why it's a city of Palm Springs, serving Palm Springs, but actually lives, quote unquote, in CVAG. It is a joint power authority here with the city of Palm Springs and Palm Desert as members. The city of Cathedral City was an original member but dropped out in 2021. And so because it's a joint powers authority of several cities, it was decided to locate it at CVAG, or Coachella Valley Association of Governments, and particularly the synergies that we have with CVAG's program, and in particular, the energy and sustainability committee and the work that CVAG is doing, such as the new Indian Canyon project that just got the award from the California Transportation Commission that you probably read about, and DC is involved in that. So it's officially a CVAG program, but it is serving just the city of Palm Springs. We launched service to the city of Palm Springs in April 2020. You probably remember that something else was going on in April 2020. Memo to self, do not launch a CCA in the middle of a global pandemic, but we did, and we survived and are thriving. The first year or so was particularly challenging, but we've managed to work through all of that. And then currently, DC serves about 28,800 residential and 4,500 non-residential customer accounts. And together we have pretty close to 85%, 85% of the eligible electricity customers. Those other 16% remained with Edison. So before DCE launched in 2020, you have the legacy Southern California Edison system, where Edison was essentially doing everything, providing the generation of electricity. So they basically, determined what sources of energy that you got. They delivered the energy to you and you got it as a customer, but all you saw was Edison with no choice whatsoever. Now, under the CCA system that we have at Desert Community Energy, there are now a lot of different choices. So we buy the electricity and we give you a choice of products. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. And businesses and residents get cleaner and greener energy. And also I have a slide to show you our sources of energy and how they are, in fact, much cleaner than the legacy power that Edison has been providing. And then Edison remains involved because they continue to provide the billing. So you get a bill, your monthly bill, that continues to be from Edison. They deliver the energy and grid maintenance. So if the power goes out, call Edison, don't call me, because that's their day job. They're the folks who maintain all of the wires and the poles and things like that. Not my day job. So in the advantage of community choice aggregation, once again, the CCA system, cleaner energy. So we buy the electric power and then Edison delivers it and you're getting clean energy from us. And for DCE, there are actually two separate programs. First of all, you have our Desert Saver program, and that's our basic plan. And that's roughly comparable to Edison. But it is in fact cheaper than Edison because it is programmed by the board to be roughly 1% less than Edison's choices. So if you're on Desert Saver, then you're getting the cheapest power that's available in Palm Springs. And then we have Carbon Free, and that's our premium program. And that is, as it says, 100% carbon-free energy. And I'll talk about that in a minute. And why do we have the carbon-free program? And why do we have such very good GHG emission reduction in Palm Springs? Is because the city council in this decision in June 2019, not only did they approve to launch a DCE, but they determined, and this is a city council decision, that when you become a DC customer, first of all at launch, but if you move to Palm Springs, you're automatically enrolled in DCE, and you're also not, that's state law, but the city council determined that everyone is automatically enrolled in our carbon-free program. Now you can opt down to the Desert Saver and save yourself some money. You can opt out and stay with Edison if Edison's your jam, but that's a city council determination to help the city achieve its greenhouse gas emissions. And once again, I think Chair Clark, you remember that we were all very much heavily involved in that, of getting the city council to make that decision. So once again, thanks to the Sustainability Commission, that's why we have these programs the way we do. So this is something called the power content label. This is required by the California Energy Commission. And every late September, early October, you're going to see this in either an email, or if we don't have your email address, you're going to get a little postcard, large postcard with this data, because the CEC requires that we make this information available to all of our customers. And so this is where we tell our customers where we get the power from, and also how our GHG emissions compare with the statewide average and the two programs. So first of all, carbon free. a big fat zero for GHG emissions, nothing. And you can see where we get our power. There's a roughly a quarter or so in 2022 is what we call eligible renewable. There's solar and wind, including the wind projects we'll talk about in a minute up by the freeway, and also eligible hydroelectric. Now, under the state rules, hydroelectric is going to be carbon free. But if it's a small hydroelectric system of less than 30 megawatts, then it's considered renewable. If it's a large, big dam, then for various policy reasons, the state has determined that it's not renewable power. It is still carbon free. It's just water coming down the turbine, but it doesn't qualify under the California rules as being renewable power. And so largely our hydroelectric comes from the Pacific Northwest. The Columbia River provides a lot of sources there, as well as to some degree also from Northern California that we get that. We had a couple of dams up in the Sierras and a few others that we got in this past year. So that's the source for our carbon-free energy, and our Desert Saver product is also large hydroelectric, so those would be the larger dams, and unspecified power, which is essentially just power that we're buying on the open market. And this compares with statewide mix of a little bit more renewables. That's according to state law, and we'll be matching that for the entire what we call compliance period, 4 years. But you can see a whole bunch of carbon content there. Natural gas is 36.4%, and also some nuclear. I will say that we, as a result of a decision by the DC board, we are adding some nuclear power starting this year. And that follows state policy on nuclear power, particularly in the Diablo Canyon. So the board did elect to receive the portion of nuclear power that you'll be paying for actually already from the Diablo Canyon, as well as a nuclear power project from Edison that's located in Arizona. So there'll be some nuclear, but not until 2024. So that will be in the label that goes out in roughly October of 2025. So you can see that we, even with the Desert Saver product, it is cheaper than Edison, and it is less greenhouse gas emissions than the statewide average. And in fact, Edison's power content label for this past year was 552 pounds per megawatt hour of CO2 emissions, or GHG. And so we were cheaper, and we were close to 40% greener than Edison. So good deal for Palm Springs, cheaper and greener energy. So DC's beneficial impacts. This was really one of the requirements of City Council of basically Palm Springs controlling its electricity choices here. And so as a result of all of those good numbers, we ran a calculation, and Christian has it for the GHG calculations that I know he's working on. We reduced the Palm Springs GHG emissions in 2022 compared with Edison of 85,200 metric tons of GHG. And that's the equivalent of taking 19,000 cars off the road. And based on the numbers that we had for 2020, that's about a 16% reduction of the state's GHG emissions just from DC. There's roughly, I think, roughly 500,000 metric tons, and it probably would have been 600,000 without DC. So, it's a large chunk of taking GHG emissions down from the city of Palm Springs. And then once again, why do we have DCE? Because we, and not Edison, we want to control where we're buying the power from. Well, guess what? Palm Springs is one of the leading renewable generation areas in the state, if not the country. When you drive by the freeway, you'll see a whole bunch of wind turbines, and we have 3 different wind farms up there under contract. And last year they generated roughly 33 megawatts of wind energy. So that's what we have under contract generating energy for Palm Springs. One of them went into service in 2021, and the other 2 went into effect the beginning of last year. And then just recently, this past September, we signed an agreement with NextEra, which is a large renewable energy developer, for a 25 megawatt battery storage project in North Palm Springs. It's a little bit south of the Sentinel Power Plant. And that is by the freeway. So our commercial operation date for that is April 1st, 2027. So that's under construction. But once again, that's a project within the city limits. And that's what council was expecting, that we actually bring clean energy jobs right here to Palm Springs. So together, between the two projects that we have in town, we've got about 100 plus clean energy jobs that we're developing between the wind projects that are already operational and the battery project that is under construction. And once again, based on the 2020 GHG emissions, that was a test year under state legislation, AB 32. That required all of the cities in California generally to ensure that GHG emissions in 2020 were no higher than those in 1990. That was the test year. And thanks to DC, because DC launched in 2020, the determination that PlaceWorks had made based on their calculations was that in fact, thanks to DCE and all of the customers, that the city did in fact exceed its climate emission goals. So we actually got there. I'm not sure that any other city in the valley did it, or even they didn't measure it, but Palm Springs measured it. And once again, Chair Clark, Vice Chair Barrett, you'll recall that we were very heavily involved in those discussions and got that determination from PlaceWorks in the memo. And I understand they're working on that again. So I wanted to speak to you a little bit more about how you can get involved in DCE. And we have something called the Community Advisory Committee. I was the chair until I became on staff. This is once again, be careful what you wish for. Having pushed at the Sustainability Commission Council to adopt DCE, I then decided that I was going to, when the Community Advisory Committee launched in 2019, I was a Sustainability Commissioner, volunteer. I said, oh, I'd like to join the CAC. I got elected chair at the time. And when in late 2021, the staff position became available, I was asked to move over to staff. And that's the point where Vice Chair Barrett joined to replace me on the Community Advisory Committee. So a little bit about what the Community Advisory Committee does. Advises the DC board on programs and operations. So we're always looking at how we can bring some community benefit programs including the ones we're doing now. Acts as an ambassador on behalf of DCE. So if you're at the supermarket and somebody starts explaining about their high electric bill, you can thank them for all of the work they're doing to talk about the green energy that they're getting. Provides input in clean and renewable energy programs, energy efficiency and strategies to reduce carbon emissions. And as Vice Chair Clark knows, we just closed a new request for proposals. And Vice Chair Barrett has kindly volunteered to serve on the review committee. So the CAC is heavily involved in helping us decide what energy that we're buying. And engages and supports customers who may be eligible for financial assistance. So when the pandemic started in 2020, the CAC members, and I was heavily involved in that, we were able to make a lot of phone calls to customers and get them enrolled in the customer reduced bill programs called CARE and FIERA. So we're very much involved in that and always educating people about these programs being available. So the CAC has membership of 2-year terms. It's an open application. Talk a little bit more about that. We are looking for additional members, and that goes to the board. By the way, Council Member Middleton is the chair of the Desert Community Energy Board. So we generally meet here in the large conference room, roughly once a month or so, depending on our agenda requirements. And there's also a representative finance director from the city of Palm Desert who serves as the Palm Desert representative. So we do have members from each of our 2 member cities. Currently, there are 3 Palm Desert members and 2 Palm Springs members, meaning Vice Chair Barrett and O'Loughlin, who's a community member. So we do have up to 3 vacancies in the Community Advisory Committee right now for Palm Springs. And so if you're interested in joining the CAC, or if you know somebody who would be interested in joining the CAC, we'd love to hear from you, because we really want to bring back the Palm Springs complement to full level, to full strength. And then continue to start working on some of the programs that we've got involved that we're planning to launch in the coming years. So there is, the link, which will be on the slides that you'll get tomorrow for all about our CAC. And that's the end of my presentation. As I said, you'll get the slides tomorrow. I'm always happy to, get any questions you may have and work with our staff to make sure that you get those answers. And there's my email address at CVAC. So at that point, happy to take any questions you may have. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions for David?
I don't have a question. I just have a comment. The notion of cars off the road as to what we're saving is a little odd in Palm Springs because 19,000 cars is like a quarter of the cars owned in Palm Springs. And it just seems, I was trying to find some other unit.
Okay. This comes from actually the EPA, and so the EPA, and we can take a look at how other to do that, but still there are probably more than 19,000 cars that are registered here in Palm
Right,
Springs.
as a quarter is what I said, a quarter of the cars in
Yeah.
Palm Springs.
But that's basically, that's an EPA measure, and so you can sort of Google Environmental Protection Agency GHG equivalents.
Mhm.
And that's the one that we thought that was the more sort of you can relate to, okay, there's suddenly no cars. That basically means, that instead of cars, you've got bikes and, on the bike lanes that the commission has worked on. But that's where that number comes from. We didn't sort of, that comes from the EPA. So we just can pull out the number there.
And it's significant because motor vehicle transportation accounts for more than 50% of the GHG emissions in California.
Yeah, and so that's one of the reasons why we're able to help the city to reduce the GHG emissions, because we've reduced the amount of, electricity, GHG from electricity and the equivalent from transportation. One thing I would mention that's somewhat related, and as I'm sure LP has mentioned to you, there's something called the Advanced Clean Fleets Regulation from the CARB, the California Air Resources Board. And so that's also part of the transportation electrification. And we're looking at, of course, making sure that we have the renewable energy as people buy more electric vehicles. Of course, they're plugging them in instead of going to the gas station. So we have to produce for the California Public Utilities Commission various reports. And one of the things we are looking at is making sure that we have enough energy, and particularly focusing on renewable energy, so that if you plug in, you get an EV and you plug it in at any of the city chargers, or if you put one in your garage, that we have enough energy to power those. So that's a big sort of trend that we're working to develop, and working very closely with the city, and as LP knows. Particularly when I mentioned the airport putting in a bunch of EV chargers to make sure, we get the electricity to provide to support those. So it is, once again, very heavily related. And I know Chair Clark, you're working on a new climate action committee. And so DC is very much, involved in all of those matters to make sure that we're, complementing the city's efforts to reduce GHG emissions.
Thank you.
So I just want to follow up on that. If we're looking at the extra EV terminals, I know, LP, you've got a lot of experience with the existing maintenance. Is that something that's going to be looked at for new ones, or are we going to be continuing the same?
Yeah.
Sure, so David luckily gets to be off the hook on this question because they're only responsible for the supply of the electricity that gets to them. I will say that maybe in a future meeting, I'd be happy to bring back, talking about different sort of like ownership models that other cities use, that we've learned about, some different contract structures and things like that. To think about how we kind of make that a bit more of a seamless part of our urban fabric, as opposed to a very seamy part, which is currently the situation.
Thank you, but once again, we're getting the energy to make sure that as the EVs get developed and the chargers, so we've got the energy for them.
I have, it's probably a comment, not a question, but when DCA was rolled out and DCE was rolled out in 2020, I signed up like so many others for the energy, what is it called? Carbon-free
Yes.
program, sorry. I recently had solar installed on my house. And I was told at the time that now I have to go back to Edison.
That would not be correct information.
So how could I pursue that?
The only way that you leave DCE is you actually call our call center to do that. So if you don't call us to switch to DC, to out or to opt out, then you remain with DCE. That is not correct information. There is no requirement there. Now, what they may have said, the only difference between DCE and SE, and I do know that solar providers are telling about that. When we have our solar program, we have what's called an annual true up. So it calculates the energy that you use in a year, and then this sort of saves it up for a year, collects it for a year, parks it on the back of your bill, and then you get a true up. Now, Edison does exactly the same thing. The only difference, and I think this is May would have said, is that DCE has its annual true up in May, and Edison will do its annual true up on the anniversary of your permission to operate. So when Edison says, okay, you can connect, that's their period. So you will end up getting, unless you're like me, but I was one of the lucky people, I connected my solar system in May 2009, is my 15th anniversary coming up. So I actually have both of my true ups from both Edison and DC in the same month, but that's just the luck of when I connected. So you will get one true up from Edison based on the delivery, so how much it costs them to deliver the energy over a year, and a separate true up from DCE that comes in May, and you'll see it probably on your early June bill. I believe the solar customers, you don't have to go back to Edison. I think the solar people says, well, you're going to get two bills, and that's probably what they're saying. But we'd love to have you stay with Edison, and of course, stay with DCE and continue to get all that wonderful green energy.
Right, and that was my concern, because I was told that I had been switched back to Edison, but I really wanted carbon free.
Yes.
And so I didn't do anything, so I must still.
There is no automatic, so under AB 117, as I mentioned, all customers are automatically enrolled in the community choice aggregator, that's state law. And the only way that you leave it is literally to call our call center or, send a message or whatever. That's all available on our website. But it requires that customer sort of effort. So if you don't call them, then guess what? You're still with us. And once again, council decision to have everyone immediately enrolled also in carbon free. So you can what we call opt down to Desert Saver, but on a, default is DCE and carbon free program.
Well, thank you. That's really helpful. I didn't do anything, so I'm glad that I'm still with DCE.
And thank you, Chair Clark, for that support.
We have a question from Vice Chair Barrett, Commissioner Alexander, sorry, I want to call you Commissioner N, that's not formal enough. I will take staff privilege to just very quickly say, former Commissioner Friedman does a great job of making a very complicated thing sound really straightforward in the presentation because of his many years of expertise and experience in this field and his ability to explain complex things simply. You'll notice from some of these questions, this is an extraordinarily complicated thing that we message to our residents and businesses and building owners on a daily basis. So as we kind of continue to talk about DCE as an asset, continue to try to encourage people to opt up where they're able to afford to do so, think about ways to support people who are on those reduced billing programs, things like that. Thinking about, this complexity, helping to kind of do this myth busting a little bit that we're hearing kind of popping up. You may start to hear or pick up on people who are either confused or it's not clear or something, that's definitely something we can continue to funnel, if you're particularly interested in that, taking that to the community advisory committee is also really great. So just wanted to put a pin in the fact that this gets confusing really fast and we do get a fair number of questions. I know David gets a ton, we get some, you may get some as well. And so let's continue to kind of see where those pain points are, where we can do that messaging and help to eliminate some of that confusion. But Vice Chair Barrett, did you say you wanted to go to Commissioner Alexander first?
Mine's very quick. I just want to double check that I forgot the phrase you used, but all customers were automatically enrolled. That includes industry also.
Yes.
Okay. So I know the mobile
And
home,
the city of Palm Springs, which is probably our largest single customer.
right, yeah, I know the mobile home parks, I think they're on DCE.
They are unless they've opted out.
Right.
The only folks who are not on DC or SCE is something called direct access customers. So, those are very large industrial and they are allowed under state rules to have, direct contracts with energy supply, providers, electricity supply providers. Everyone else is with SE or DCE.
So is the carbon source power higher rate than the regular SCE power? Because that's the complaint. I've been at neighborhood meetings where it's low income. And they complain that it seems to be a higher rate.
Where, as you saw from that, we're actually much lower than Edison. So our basic program, which is cheaper than Edison, is 40% greener than Edison. And our premium program is 0 carbon free. So you can refer folks to they're always welcome to contact us. But the power content label has the details and you can actually compare. So on your roughly late September, early October bill from Edison, they're also required to put out the power content label. As I said, it's a statewide requirement. So you can look at your September, early October bill and you'll see them at 552 pounds of carbon free of GHG per megawatt hour. And you see 0 for carbon free and 357 for Desert Saver. So we are much greener and for, as I said, for Desert Saver, we're cheaper on top of that.
Commissioner, you were asking about the cost though?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so the Desert
Yeah.
Saver plan is gonna be that
Yeah.
just about 1% cheaper on the generation. The carbon free plan, David, is about 10%.
Yeah, it's roughly 14% right now. We're obviously looking when we can to sort of, reduce that premium, but it's a 14% premium just because regrettably renewable and carbon free
Right.
energy is a premium product, so it is more
But
expensive.
Desert Saver is like 150.
A little bit less,
Yeah.
and so customers who receive the CARE and or FERA discounts would be automatically enrolled in Desert Saver, is that
Yes,
correct?
they're in the Desert Saver program and they're already getting a statewide, say under state rule, roughly a 30% reduction. So they're not paying, there is anybody on Desert Saver by definition is actually saving money being on Desert Community Energy, roughly 0.5 to 1% less than Edison. And once again, it's greener power as well.
Well, you do a great job because it's very complex and I couldn't explain it like you just did. So thank you.
Thank
And
you,
Commissioner, one of the things that we often work on is helping people understand how to get enrolled for CARE and FERA. So, if anybody's ever talking to someone who's saying, I'm low income, I get these discounts, I don't know if I'm eligible. Enrolling in those low income discounts is still through Edison. So if there's someone who maybe their income changes or they're new to the area or something like that, and they want to enroll, that goes through Edison to do that. And then once they're enrolled in Edison, then that would get transferred over to Desert Saver. And then I also hear a lot of confusion, especially from customers who feel like they're paying a lot more for DCE, based on the way the bill is broken down. So you're shown on your bill, your generation and your transmission as separate accounts or separate amounts that you're billed for. Because it's sort of split out and listed as generation DCE, sometimes I've had folks come into my office say like, I'm literally paying double for DCE. Why do I have this section that says generation DCE? Because if you just had the same Edison bill, it wouldn't quite jump out as being labeled as a separate cost. You're still paying for that generation either way. So that's that may not be the confusion that you're hearing, but it's a confusion that has come to us a few times. It just it looks like it's double, but you're technically paying for 2 services on that one bill.
Yeah. And this is what we call unbundled under the sort of the jargon, the Public Utility Commission. You have bundled customers, so they both get generation and delivery from SCE, and unbundled, which means Edison delivers the energy and it's generated, your generation bought on your behalf by DCE. That's what we call community choice aggregation, is we aggregate all the customers and buy on their behalf, buy energy on their behalf.
Any other questions? Okay, great. We'll catch you out here.
Okay, thank you, commissioners. I'm gonna run to McAllen for a concert and you'll see me again next month because I'll be wearing one of my gazillion different hats here. We'll be talking about the Inland Regional Energy Network with my colleague Jacob Alvarez, but I'm also working on that and we'll be joining Jacob. So I will see you again in just a couple of weeks.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, LP, and thank you again, commissioners, and good luck.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, do you want to? Over to you.
So the next item on the agenda is staff comments from our director, LP McCloy. And you all should have read seen and read the staff memo that she distributed last week. LP?
Yes, so in the interest of time, because I went way over my self-allotted 10 minutes last time, I'm just going to mention 2 administrative items and then as soon as I can figure out how to get out of this thing here, and then I'm going to turn it over to any commissioners who might have comments or questions about any other sections of the memo. So I'm not gonna get into any topics unless somebody asks me, but you should feel free to ask me. Let me just turn the screen share back on real quick. Okay. I'm a mechanical engineer, this is a texture screen. Okay. So 2 quick administrative items. So one, I know a lot of folks have had trouble with the email. I apologize for how difficult that is. So we're working with IT right now for anyone who hasn't been able to activate the email to get a new temporary password sent out. So you should see that tomorrow. We just want to make sure that we're not sending a temporary password to people who are already actively using Arenas. So we're working with IT just to cross-check that list. So you'll see that come out tomorrow, maybe Thursday at the latest, so that way you can get into those accounts. But for now, as you saw in the memo, I'm still sending everything to personal email addresses as well, just to make sure everybody gets everything. I'm not sending a lot of things, but if you're worried you might be missing something, just let me know. Or maybe I have like a wrong email address for you. But otherwise, we'll continue to do that, and probably transition over to those commissioner emails in March, once we get all those, set up. And then one other sort of learning that we've had this month, so as everybody knows, we're now back in our in-person first, commission, council, everything era. So we're post-COVID emergency declaration and into everybody really needing to be here under most circumstances if you want to participate in the meeting. So we did learn, I think I mentioned in previous meetings that you're able to participate remotely as long as you publish your location. And theoretically allow members of the public to attend and provide comment there. We do have a commissioner who's in Australia at this time, so we wouldn't have had to publish the Australian address. It's probably slightly unlikely that anyone would show up, but you never know. But we did get clarification from the clerk's office that I need to be able to publish that location at least 72 hours before the meeting. So if you know you're gonna be away and you wanna participate, if there's not really anything to vote on or anything like that, you're always welcome to just listen in as a member of the public or watch the recording. But if you wanna participate in a vote or you wanna be part of a discussion in particular, just let me know, preferably a week before the meeting. So once you get that agenda from me or, kind of put a mark on your calendar for like, hey, let us know if there's anything crazy happening, about a week before the meeting. So that way we'll make sure to publish that at the right time. So that is that time cutoff is 72 hours before the meeting, that we have to have that published. I will now take any questions that anyone has. Actually, I just really quickly lied, 2 surveys going. So Christian still got the transportation survey open. So please feel free to continue sharing that with your networks, so we can continue to get some more surveys in. And then thanks to the commission's feedback from our last meeting, Juliet, who's here on the Zoom, hi Juliet, has published her energy efficiency and building survey. So you'll see some updates based on our test in the last meeting. Those links are here in the staff memo. So please feel free to go in and take those surveys and share them with your networks as well. But I'm happy to take any questions on any other topics.
Any questions for LP? Don?
Not a question, just a comment. It was very encouraging to see that the planning is working with us to handle the landscaping on the city property.
Correct.
And I did not know, it was good that you pointed out that the original landscaping plan for the city hall is actually less desert friendly.
It's true.
No, more desert friendly, less water intensive than what's currently here.
Mhm.
So that was very encouraging. And there was, and then I'm guilty of not double checking the charger at the
That's
convention
okay.
center. I'll do it one of these
I
days.
appreciate you thinking about it though. The offer still stands for any charter heroes who want to validate both convention center and village green charters. Yes, thank you. And yes, we're working with planning on the, basically we gotta get rid of the city hall grass because it's a big old eyesore. But there was an open question for about a year as to whether the grass was considered part of the historic structure. It's not, turns out, because the original landscaping was desert scaping. So it gives us a little bit of leeway and flexibility there. Any other questions?
I was just gonna ask, any other questions?
Oh, when can we talk about the subcommittee on water?
We'll bring that back up when we get to the subcommittee section. But the short answer is I'll be sending out a scheduling poll for those who expressed interest last time, send that out tomorrow. But we'll bring that back up when we get to that committee section. Okay, record time on staff comment. I guess my memo was really thorough this month. Thanks, everyone.
Yes, thanks for providing it.
Oh, sorry, one other thing, I think everybody probably saw this, but there's also a new item in the packet this month that will continue to arrive, which is the upcoming agenda items and guest presentations. And we've got all of this in here for also subcommittees. So if anybody's interested in a topic, even if you're not a member of subcommittee, please let me know if you would like to listen in on one, because we do have some Brown Act considerations in terms of the number of people. Also if there's things on here when we get to the end of the meeting that you want to talk about at a future meeting, we've got kind of our holding area toward the bottom of topics that people have expressed interest in that we haven't scheduled yet. So feel free to use that resource or ask me to add things to it. That's it.
Thank you. Moving on then, the next item in the agenda is new business. And the first item is a preview of Earth Day month 2024. I assume that's LP?
Yes, I forgot I'm the first new business again, sorry. Okay, so yes. So, anyone who was here or involved with our work last year remembers that, April is Earth Month, which is Armageddon for sustainability professionals. So we start preparing for this many weeks in advance. Because that's really one of our, major points during the year where we try to organize things around, do some messaging, we get a lot of interest from the public, et cetera. So the team and I had a really productive brainstorm last week to start to get us preparing for Earth Month, which will be here before we know it. And so we've come up with a couple of themes and kind of organizing principles. And so I'm just gonna briefly talk about this today to kind of plant some seeds in people's heads. So we have a couple of different goals for Earth Month. One is really focusing on helping people feel empowered. So, often when we talk about environmental work, I think a lot of you are taking action by being part of this commission. You're taking action in your communities. A lot of the things that we talk about in this commission and also just throughout our work are figuring out how to empower individuals, groups, et cetera, to be part of the environmental changes that we need to see in order to continue to thrive as a species. And so really thinking about that empowerment, I think is really important. Thinking about how we reach and engage all of our different groups here in Palm Springs. There's so many different ways we can all group ourselves within, living in Palm Springs and, our neighborhood identities, our personal identities, et cetera, so many different things. So figuring out how we're working across all those different groups, but also how we're really honing in on that key environmental message, particularly of Earth Day and Earth Month, which is really connecting to nature, connecting to place, connecting to community. So one of the ideas we're starting to kick around is thinking about sustainable action trackers and goals. So how can people sort of in their own groups, working together individually, take a number of environmental actions to help us hit a city target, say 1,000 environmental actions in April, or 1 million, just making up numbers. But thinking of like a nice round number where we can start to track and collect different ways that people are contributing to community, taking empowering actions, et cetera, to help the environment. So the bug that I'm gonna start placing in everybody's brain, and we'll revisit this in February, one, what are some of those empowering actions that people can take? So when you think about Earth Day, the first thing everybody thinks about is tree planting, right? Tree planting is a whole lot of work. I don't know if I wanna organize tree planting, but we can. I know maybe the UCC, who we've got a representative from here in our public comment, I know they probably are really good at things like that and other distributed environmental actions, but it's things like, teaching your neighbor to compost, it's, helping with a litter cleanup, it's, attending a desert community energy, I don't know, what are some different ways across all of the different sectors that we work in, that's energy, water, efficiency, trash, transportation, what are some different things, some different individual and group actions that can be taken? And I want to encourage you specifically to think about this in the context of the different networks and groups that you may be a part of. So I know when we talked in our orientations about sort of who are all of our publics, right? So some of you are members of neighborhood organizations, some of you may have a coworker community, some of you may have a faith community or other sort of ways that you're organized, your family, et cetera. What are some different activities that might resonate with your groups, that you think would be interesting. We are also probably gonna organize a couple of things. I know Christian threw out a really interesting idea of like, you know, closing down a street for like open biking and walking and things like that. You know, there are a bunch of different things we could do. You know, definitely feel free to feed us those. I think we're gonna be targeted with the ones that we wanna organize, but also working with other groups in the community to support any activities that they wanna do as well. Because there's a number of either explicitly environmental or environmentally aligned groups. You know, how do we kind of empower them to also be active during Earth Month? So that's kind of the key question is like, what are some of those actions that can be taken? And then what are some ways that we can kind of, you know, encourage people to take part and commemorate reaching success? So, you know, what's a good target for a number? How should we, you know, communicate action toward the number? I mean, we were thinking like, you know, make a little graphic on the website and a hashtag, you know, a pretty easy way to kind of count numbers, but you know, do people want to fill out a little form with a picture or whatever? What are some different ways that you might have seen that done? You know, low lift for people that participate, easy to track, easy to kind of be a part of something. So this is kind of our initial framing that we're kicking around. You can also tell me if you think it's really bad, which is fine. It could be, you never know. Christian, is there anything that you want to add from when we talk about this subject?
No.
Okay, so that's the end of me talking about that. Anybody have any questions, initial thoughts? This will be coming back in February to talk about again, but any initial reactions or questions?
Sorry. I mean, we are talking in Scour about the community cleanup, and it would be a good time to introduce that. The question is, would we be able to define those things like the waivers and releases and all that sort of thing? You think we could get those defined in a way that we could get somebody, some organization to volunteer to step in and do that?
I think it's a good target.
And
Yeah, I think it's a good thing for us to shoot for. We'll get those right very well.
right, but a community cleanup is not really quite as environmental as some other things, because it's really not about changing behaviors. And but it is about getting people thinking. And so, I mean, I would say that we really need to focus on something that's more about changing behaviors. As I always say, getting rid of palm trees. No, never mind, I didn't say that.
It's just like planting new trees.
We're replacing them with Washington palm trees, not those other palm trees. There we go. Anyway, but something where we could, something that focusing more on changing behavior. But I think that tying the community cleanup that we're talking about in Scour to that day would help.
Yeah, totally. That makes sense.
Go ahead, Ian.
So I know the Rotary Club goes up on 111 every Saturday and cleans up there.
Okay.
That would be good.
Yeah,
I
totally.
don't know how well this would go over during Palm Springs, but in Oakland during COVID, they shut down neighborhood streets, which encouraged people, you know, to walk.
Sure.
And our pollution and gas consumption, it was like unbelievable. People really did stop driving.
That's great.
So I don't know how well that would go here, but.
No time like Earth Month to try, right?
Right.
Great, thank you.
I'm thinking more like, is that a good month for us to have the shredding event if everything falls in line?
So, Palm Springs Disposal traditionally does their biannual community cleanup event where they do, you know, people can bring bulky items and stuff. They almost always do that in April. I think they're planning to also do a shredding and e-waste event in conjunction with that. We'll talk about why I'm talking about PSDS with that in a minute. But yeah, I think it's highly likely that one would be scheduled for April.
So if that's the case, I'm thinking because the shredding event happens here on the grounds of City Hall, we can ask the local community organizations that heavily involved in sustainability to table
Yeah, great.
at the City Hall, because we will have a huge amount of people, number of people coming to the shredding event anyway.
Mhm.
So if we can just display, hey, these are the organizations in the community that are going towards sustainability and trying to do stuff, maybe people can sign up with them or ask questions, clear some doubts, so that way we are bringing people and the community organizations together and we can kind of get two birds with city stone.
Sure, yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yes,
Eric?
I'm gonna put us to work. I was actually thinking that, since I'm on the, climate subcommittee, that we as a climate subcommittee pull our resources with the energy companies and also I want to talk about the EV charging station companies and also Sunline and for all of those entities to get together maybe one day in April for a weekend of education. Finding a way for us to reach out into the community to say, this education process is happening at this day, at this time. I know it would be highly difficult, but I think we can accomplish it by pulling our resources together and figuring out a way to do it.
And I'd just like to go beyond that point, and Don's point. I think we should focus in the subcommittees the next couple of months on the things that we've been talking about and what things we can do in the near term to support Earth Day, Earth Month.
Great. Yeah, that makes sense. And I think, yeah, educational convenings are good ways for us to use our city brand authority, and we're good at that as a city and commissions, so that's a great suggestion.
I know you talked about having a presence at the picnic, the 1 PS picnic, but can you be more
Snazzy?
thorough?
Yeah.
No, I mean, exactly what do you have planned?
Oh,
and
sure.
What might be able to, do some more things?
Yeah, great question. Planned, nothing specific. So happy to hear about suggestions that folks might have for what might resonate particularly well. I know based on my experience at the picnic last year, I think PSCS and I are already planning to be a little bit more visible with the recycling, organic separation, kind of being a little bit more visible, like how do you make that event a sustainable event? But I know so much of that is upfront planning, and unless, it is a lot about what happens on the day, but isn't necessarily, as much of that goes into motion before the event as at the event. So if there's any additional things that you think might really resonate with that audience, whether it's, focus on like bike safety or a giveaway or, energy efficiency survey, we're happy to tailor our programming.
And I might add that I think it was 2022 that we did make an attempt to differentiate the containers for food waste and recycling and trash. And it wasn't as effective as it could have been, but we made a good start.
It could be a refresher course.
Yes.
Totally. And I always tell people that they've got to do something 3 times before it sticks. So this will be the second of our third, hard hits on proper separation at the picnic, and then next year will be stop.
Great. Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, so just jumping topic slightly, considering the questions we heard in council on the franchise agreement, it turns out council doesn't know a lot about many of the things we're doing, so education on that day in general.
Sure. Makes sense. Great. Okay, so as I mentioned, we'll be coming back with this in February with a little bit more structure. Basically, if we're gonna do any events, we have to decide by or before February to do that. And so we'll have another opportunity to think about kind of filling in around those edges, but as people are thinking about this, please feel free to email us or just hold your thoughts for subcommittees or our next commission meeting. And we look forward to working together for it then. So, welcome to the Thunderdome.
One other suggestion, make sure you get a well-located, positioned, booth.
Oh, for the picnic? Yeah, great suggestion, thank you. I like to kind of be in the back.
Yes, so either Joy or April, the two people that are running it, and Bob, of course, but yeah, I think it's a good idea to get it right up front.
End of March, third week of March?
March, 23rd.
Third week of March.
Third Saturday.
Third Saturday in March, whatever that is.
It can be our Earth Month soft launch.
There you go.
Great. Thank you all.
Thank you. And we'll move on to the next item under new business, which is a request for a letter of support for Caltrans, for a Caltrans grant application. Christian?
Yes, so I hope you all got the template that we sent for the letter of support. Right now, I'm working on a grant application to Caltrans for climate adaptation planning. So the plan that we're trying to make is a heat mitigation and shade plan for multimodal transportation with the focus on reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So included in that would be like a heat impact assessment for the city, a heat equity study, a shade equity study, and also community engagement strategies and implementation strategies and possible, strategies on how to mitigate heat impact and while also reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So, we wanted to see if you're interested in in signing on to this letter of support. If you have any questions about the grant.
And I'm just pulling up that template really quickly now, just give me a sec. The reason we're bringing this to this meeting is, the grant application is due on Thursday, so, that's why it's now. And, obviously, please feel free to make any comments or changes. I did send this out, right?
Yes, you
Okay,
did.
good. I just wanted, I was like, getting some blank faces, just to make sure. And so obviously, really brilliant artistic writing here that I did, but hoping to have some support from the commission for the application, just to kind of talk about the value of the work. Obviously, we're still at early stages because the whole point of the grant is to get some money to help us figure out what to do, so hard for us to say exactly what we're gonna do before we get the money to do it. Does anyone have any questions about this? Yes.
Is it typical to send in letters? I'm just wondering what the strategic point of the letter is.
Sure.
I'm happy to do it, but just curious.
Yeah, absolutely. Good question. So it's typical for most of the state grants, at least that I've worked on in other cities, to have letters from different community bodies who might be either a party to or part of or interested in the grant to kind of demonstrate, A, that Christian and I have talked about this to literally anyone else. B, to demonstrate sort of why different stakeholders might find this work to be valuable. I know the commission might think of themselves as quite close to this work, but I think, in your role as appointed by the council, as members of the community representing diverse viewpoints, I think your, support for the work would be helpful for somebody like the California Transportation Commission and Caltrans to see that the work has legs beyond just sort of our office.
So are we looking for other neighborhood input?
We are, so we know that the time is a little bit short, so we started working on this effectively about 3 weeks ago, so we have been working on this for a super long time. We are planning to send this over to CVAG to see if they'll be willing to send one in. We do ones for them all the time with this sort of turnaround, so hopefully they don't mind. We're also sending one over to the tribe. We have about a 30% success rate in terms of getting them to actively sign on early, but even if they don't, we'll be working with them during the grant to look at the planning. If anyone thinks that their neighborhood organization, because I know also we don't necessarily have time to get a lot of people to approve them, given that the deadline is Thursday. If anyone thinks they are part of an organization that might want to submit, I know Commissioner Graham, you may see something like this come through our through Dean as part of the business organizations, so that's something you might see tomorrow. So if there's anybody else that anyone can think of, we'd be happy to send this around. I think we need, for the application, I think we need like 3. I don't think we need a ton, but we also do really hope to work with some of these groups in the grant. So even if we don't get a letter from them, doesn't mean that they can't be part of the work. How many?
So
3 is our target.
I have a question, so. And I may be reading this wrong. Part of this is mitigating temperature for seniors when they're out waiting for, because I see that I've given seniors rides because the shade that's there is static. Of course, the sun moves around. They're still out there waiting. Now the sun's on them. So I'd like to see that improve because it doesn't do much good to have shade that goes away on.
Right, no, absolutely. And Christian, do you want to talk a little bit more about like the intersection between these extreme conditions and kind of how we are thinking about our active transportation and reducing GHG in transportation more generally?
Yeah, so that is something that we would like to include, so that's kind of part of the, heat impact assessment and the like heat equity assessment, so just seeing where and how, different parts of the city are affected by the temperatures, some places are hotter because there maybe aren't any trees or any shade structures or anything like that, so that is included, and also just understanding of how it affects different communities, underserved communities specifically, because the grant does ask for a focus in that. And yeah,
And it's really hard for us to ask anybody to bike or take the bus and there's nothing to cover it, so. I absolutely heard and we would hope to represent, experience like that and that's.
So LP, are you looking to us tonight to agree that this letter should be sent from the commission? And you're looking at other organizations that can send similar letters?
Correct, and so I think the main thing that I would theoretically need, so if the commission doesn't like the specific letter as written, but is open to sending a letter that is mostly this and is willing to appoint someone that you will delegate to kind of sign off on the letter, if you think the letter needs some work between now and Thursday, I think that's fine, you can say like, yes, we wanna send a letter. This one's all right, we'll get the final one by Thursday. If you're fine with this letter as written, also great. And then if anyone has any suggestions for any other people, we should ask.
And I read it through, it looked good to me. I might make a few minor comments, but I guess that's the question for the rest of the commissioners now. What do you think of the letter as written? And would you want to submit some changes or corrections by Thursday?
I think it looks fine. I don't see a problem.
It seemed, Don, you seem to have a.
I'm a proofreader. I thought it read very well, but I wasn't quite sure what I was being asked to do. And so, and now that it's clear that it's to show support for an application. It's not to show support for something specific. It's
Sure,
for an
fair, okay.
It's for an application, and I think it needs some tweaking to make that a little clearer that we're supporting an application, not that we're supporting a specific project.
I see.
And I'm making, you're reading it.
Yes, I follow. Yep.
I think if you look at the first sentence, it does say that we're supporting the application.
But the first sentence isn't sufficient.
Okay.
When you're reading something like this, you need a little more of it. I can think of it, but I can't think of it at the moment, because I wasn't sure about when I saw this, I thought this is great, but I don't know what it is we're actually doing. And so now that I know we're supporting an application, I'm a little bit more favorable, but I still think there needs to be something else. But I'm maybe being way overly persnickety. And if the rest of the board is okay with, let's just do this letter as it is.
So, let's see, is there consent? It seems to me that there was enough head nodding when I looked around the room that there's consensus that we should send a letter. If people have specific comments, could they just send them to you and Christian by the end of the day tomorrow?
Yeah, that's not me. I mean, if that were-
Never mind my thoughts. I'm not around tomorrow, so.
Okay. I can take your comments and make it a little bit clearer what the specific intent of the letter is.
Okay.
I can do that.
I'll be, so for example, if we are signing on this letter as a commission, sustainability commission, can I duplicate the same letter as an individual sustainability
Sure.
business owner in the city? So that's the second letter.
Sure, yeah, totally.
And maybe we have one PS board members here, maybe they can sign it.
Not anymore.
I know, one PS I think would be great, but I don't know if there's enough time, because I think it would have to be improved. Yeah, I would assume, yeah, so, but I would imagine, I mean, one PS is definitely a group that we would work with, and so, yeah, but I see where your brain is going, and I appreciate you.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about us hitting the number. I also, for most grant applications, these kind of things are optional, but good to do. So, we're not gonna not be able to submit if we don't get 3. I think this is something that we'll take under advisement for future things, because we know that it takes some organizations like a month to get this stuff approved, so it's sometimes tough to have the lead time between finding the grant and getting all the things in motion and approved.
So who will sign? I'm sorry, Kat, go ahead, Kathy.
I was just thinking, since we can't get to one PS, you could maybe weave in the collaborative engagements that you've had with community organizations and that you have a good history of that kind of relationship.
Totally, and that's, I know we mentioned the organization a lot in the application, but I think, we can add something about like, we're there every month already, they know our faces, they know who we are, and we'll continue to build on that relationship. That's good.
Yeah, you could even say there are former.
That's very true, yeah, former board members, or all members, yeah, that's a great point.
We got 3.
Yeah. There we go.
Any other questions? Except for mine, who will sign for the commission?
It's a great question. I would imagine probably the chair would sign, I guess.
Kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Be
You
available.
can sort of sign on behalf of the, well, because it's currently written on behalf of the commission.
Yes.
And if anybody wanted to submit a different letter, not on behalf of the commission, you could just change it to say, not that. Okay,
So
We need a motion.
I think so.
I think so. I think, well,
I move that we, support the, letter of support. And the chair will be signing that on behalf, signing that on behalf of the board within 2 days. Anything else?
is there a
To
second?
add to the motion?
A second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
I think so. Does anyone not agree? Okay, just-
All in favor? Opposed? Passed. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate that. And thanks to Christian, who has been doing Herculean work pulling this concept together and getting the grant application done. It is not simple and he's doing a great job. So really appreciate that. Thanks, Christian. Christian's doing great.
Thank you. So the next major item is old business, and we have one item. Recap council presentation on Palm Springs Disposal Services proposed extension, which was last Thursday. That's LP. And you have 10 minutes.
Okay. Great. Well, I gave myself more time than I needed. Commissioners will remember that I really briefly previewed this for everyone at our December meeting. That was another one of those things where timelines and agenda deadlines did not work in my favor. But that Palm Springs Disposal had come to us with a request to extend their franchise agreement for an additional 5 years from 2029 to 2034. To allow them to purchase and amortize new vehicles. So they need new trucks because we're collecting more stuff with organics. And because their standard vehicle replacement schedule is now being strained by needing to use more spares to do this, they need to get new trucks into the fleet. And it now takes 3 years from when you order a truck to when you get a truck. And the way they operate their business is they amortize their truck purchases over about 7 years, because they're about $500,000. So this was the core reason they came to us. They came to the table also offering a number of additional enhancements to the program based on things we've learned since, the franchise agreement was last addressed in September of 2022, but that was, I think, an 18-month process even before that, to figure out what that would look like. So one of those is offering free kitchen pails for composting to anyone who requests them, multifamily, single family, mobile home, anybody who wants one, residential, but if anybody really needs it for their business, we can talk to me and figure it out. And expanding the bulky item free pickup to also include multifamily. So currently, single family homes have access to, I believe it's for a year, maybe more than that. But bulky item pickups where if you want to get rid of a couch or something, you just call them, they come get it for free. People who live in multifamily or shared billing accounts until last Thursday did not have the ability to do that. You had to pay between $25 and $75 to pick up for a bulky item or bring it yourself to the bulky item collection days, which is not really working great for a lot of people. So that's something we've been able to address. Palm Springs Disposal is also going to take over the actual implementation of our shredding and e-waste events. We'll continue to support those, schedule them, and help staff them. It's one of the greatest pieces of news anyone has ever delivered to me. Because they also do shredding and e-waste collection in Desert Hot Springs. They already run the bulky item pickups here twice a year. It just makes more sense. What else we get? Oh, they are also committing to, if a zero emission truck passes a performance test in the summer, because summer is a hard time for EVs, they're gonna buy an electric trash truck. Also extremely excited about my electric trash truck. And then the final piece was that they are hoping to bring residents of the Navigation Center, which is gonna be opening in over the next few months, into a job training and kind of like workforce reentry program called their Hand Up program. So they'll have 4 people at a time for 6 months. So that's twice a year. So 8 people over the course of the year, they'll be working with in these kind of like placement programs to help them, build up some resume experience, get back into the workforce. across their business portfolio. So that could be on the waste collection side, it could be admin, it could be a number, any number of the things that they do there at PSCS. And then potentially if there's openings and it is a good fit, potentially hiring them on as well. So we took that to Scour, the subcommittee. So Scour got a chance to talk a little bit more to Chris, who's the president of Palm Springs Disposal, and Liz, who's our environmental counterpart. So if any Scour members want to add on to that, feel free when we get to that moment. And then with some support from Scour, we went to the the council last Thursday. So Vice Chair Barrett, who's the Scour chair, provided comment from Scour in support of the proposal. We did kind of a run through for the council, fielded a lot of questions, a lot of just, as I think Chair Clark mentioned, I can't remember who specifically mentioned, I apologize. Just confusion or questions about the franchise, about how certain programs worked. We gave some program updates. We did get some questions also about just kind of how the franchise works, how the trucks are allocated, different things like that. But the council did move 5-0 to approve that extension. And so now I just have to get the contract executed, and then we're moving forward. So that's the recap. Does anyone have any questions or want to add on to anything that I shared? I see Graham, Alexander, Barrett, Butler, is that right?
I will.
Yeah, I don't
go that one.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Mine is more of the comment. I sat in the chamber the other night, and I gotta tell you, I was more proud to be on this commission that night than any other night or time that I've actually been in that chamber before of being on this committee, because that council rattled off every question and thinking, are we gonna stump her? They did not. They did not. There was stuff in there that we've talked about in both, I've heard about in Scour and things that we've talked about in here. But I gotta tell you, I commend every minute of that, because it felt good to sit in there and listen to that and watch those council members go, oh, okay, oh. And they asked another question and another council, and it was just, it felt really good to be in that commission, in this commission, in that chamber that night. I was like, okay, here we are. Thank you.
No, thank you. And I felt exceptionally well prepared after our run through at Scour as well. So you all asked every question the council could have come up with and more. So I appreciate that.
It was unbelievable.
Thank you. Commissioner Alexander, next year.
And this may be a picky question, but on that pail, does it have a top?
Yes, it will have.
Okay,
Yes.
because
Good question.
it just sounds like fail.
Yeah, oh no, not just an open bucket. As much as we love our Ace Hardware buckets that we use frequently, it's not just one of the Ace Hardware buckets. Not just, Ace Hardware buckets are incredible, but it does also have a lid. Yes.
I'm standing just because I can't sit for forever. I was surprised at the number of questions coming out of council, and the mix of them. It was like, don't you ever come? I know some of them are at the 1PS meetings. Aren't you ever listening to what we say at the 1PS meetings or anything like that? There's all the stuff we know. So which points to what Andrew has focused on in the past. We need to do better about promoting ourselves and about what we're talking about and what's going on and all these sorts of things. Because it's just all these sorts of regular, ordinary stuff that we've been answering for the past 2 years that just we're still being asked about. That's all. It reminded me of an information vacuum that's not happening somehow.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. And there are definitely like tangible disconnects on certain things. And I think each one of those opportunities is another way to kind of think about what needs to be in our FAQ, what do I feel like is crystal clear, but it isn't. So it was a good learning opportunity on which information gaps still need to be filled. I can't remember whose hand was next.
Whoever else, I'll go last.
Anybody? Okay, sorry, I just thought I saw another hand.
Okay, I just wanted to follow up on that. Actually, over the past 6 months or so, I've had regular meetings with now Mayor Bernstein. And a lot of the things that were discussed last Thursday, he and I had discussed. But one of the things that he brought up early on was that he does want to spend more time with the commission. He'd like to be a liaison, even though in the past, there were council member liaisons to various commissions and they stopped doing that. But he's interested enough and he said he'd like to do that. And at one time we were talking about having some kind of a retreat, which never happened. But I think it's very positive that Mayor Bernstein, is very interested, and I think it's, we should jump on the opportunity to spend more time with him and perhaps other members of the council.
I can follow up with their team on that. Great, okay, thanks everyone, appreciate that.
And then finally, we move on to subcommittee and commissioner reports. The first is subcommittee on waste reduction. Don?
I know I'm talking too much. Real quick, we had a report from the president of the DWA board about the upcoming changes in water and restrictions on water use. That was, this was at the SCOUR meeting. This is going to connect into where we're going to go with water issues in general. But it was just interesting to hear him talk about that the changes are going to be drastic, they're going to come soon, and they're going to hurt the poor people. Is what he said. Hurt those that are less, because rates are going to go up. And rates will probably affect those with less resources. There was that. We're continuing to talk about a community cleanup framework of some sort that would help organizations in the city working through us to do cleanups. And that we do something to encourage that. And that's just on our agenda. It's still there. And as I said, it ties in with Earth Day, Earth Month, whatever that is. We also talked a little bit about holiday trash. This is a topic I'd like to see us maybe work on a little further as to whether or not we want to do some sort of campaign around the holidays to tell people, don't mix the trash somehow. I mean, it's a simple thing, but it's something that needs to happen. And that's basically what we ran out of time for other stuff.
Thank you. Any questions for Don? And the next one is the subcommittee on climate action, and I'll do a brief report on that. One of the things that we had as an assignment for the last meeting was to review certain documents, the vulnerability assessment, the 2013 climate action plan, and the 2016 sustainability plan. And Christian had gone through some of them ahead of time and listed items, but what we're looking for is near-term activities which we could engage in very quickly and perhaps get some quick results. So we went around the room and generated a list of things on the whiteboard. We'll document those items, and we'll continue to work on them in subsequent meetings, and we'll report back to the commission as well on the things that we think we might be able to get some traction with soon. I think that also would play into what we're talking about for Earth Month and Earth Day. So we'll keep working on that. Another item was one that had been brought up to the commission at our November meeting, and that was when the Public Arts Commission and members of a member of the Public Arts Commission and members of the Parks and Recreation Commission came to talk about the plan for obtaining artistic shade structures for parks. And we had a discussion about it at that meeting, and then we deferred it to the Climate Action Subcommittee. The two recommendations that we came up with at the meeting last week were that the Parks and Recreation Commission should provide regular updates on the shade structure plans to the subcommittee and the commission, and that and then kind of another aspect of sustainability that we looked at was that the Sustainability Commission and Climate Action Subcommittee should request guidelines for materials used in the shade structures. The structures themselves should be sustainable, utilizing durable and recycled materials. And so this is our report on that for this meeting. I don't know that we need to take any further action now, but we'll discuss it some more at the next Climate Action Subcommittee meeting.
And I'll send those two meeting reports out tomorrow, right? I'll just send you those actually, with the slides. And then, do you want to talk about what?
And water, yes. Do you have anything to say?
So I spoke with LP. We're going to be sending out email or LPAs to figure out a date and time that will work for everyone. I think we don't want to overlap meetings, so we'll try and look that. It sounds like, based on what LP said, it's probably going to be another evening meeting, but we'll work to get a good date for you folks, for everyone. I had the opportunity also of going to, my first, GWA board meeting. Very informative, just learning the process of what the board, works on. And they work on everything from dealing with people in the public crashing into, cones on the street and complaints. So it was kind of interesting to see what they're working on. Also, if you get a chance, if you're gonna be on the water committee, there was a document that, link that, Christian sent out. I think it's a good document, kind of a kickoff to review. It's kind of a review of the challenges that the state is working on to reduce, to continue water conservation. But it also shows the achievements that we've made. We've really reduced water use, indoor water use over a period of time. That's we've done a good job within the state. So I think continuing the challenges that GWA has and our community has to meet these new demands. Commissioner Barrett mentioned the cost to lower income folks is one of those big challenges. So that report kind of goes over some of the big issues that they're trying to face. So whether or not we can help address those, I think would be good. So I think that's it for now.
And one thing to add to that is this Thursday at 3 o'clock at the animal shelter, there's going to be a presentation on water conservation. It's going to be by Paula Ortega, who's the president of the DWA board.
Yeah, Oswit Land Trust received a grant to do that. So I'm planning on attending that.
Just say that again.
Oh, sorry, the Oswit Land Trust received a grant to host the talk for that Paul's gonna be doing at the shelter. And we can share that information. I think I have the link on that. It's free to everyone, so.
Good, thank you.
That's 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock.
Yeah.
And finally, the last item on the agenda is commissioner comments and upcoming agenda. We'll just go around the table, and if anybody has any additional comments or requests for the agenda for the meeting in February, please speak up. And there is a list of upcoming items, presentations for the commission and the subcommittees that were included in the materials that sent out for this meeting. So can we start with Eric?
Okay, I'm gonna pull that up again. Okay, hold on.
Do you wanna scroll that up a little?
What all do we, okay,
So it says that we do, and David Friedman already referred to the fact that we're having a presentation from CBAG on the Inland Regional Energy
cause that's gonna
network.
be next one.
That will be next month for the commission.
Yeah, for the commission. Okay. Yeah.
Anything else?
No, I have nothing. I want to make sure that
Okay.
different committees. That's the other one, where I was doing.
Prima?
Yes, I'm looking at Cal Grants website for other purposes, and I found that there are many grants available at state and federal level on sustainability and to do a lot of research and actually work in the communities. But I think we have a void where we don't have a person dedicated to looking for grants or applying for grants or anybody with skills. Absolutely, I don't have that grant writing skill, but if anybody, want to help somebody to write those grants and proofread them, I think we should think about having somebody on sustainability board or commission just for the grants. And, the grant we are just mentioning, I'm happy to work with them because I already worked with UCC for like almost 6 months. But at the same time, I'm like, there is so much money, we can do a lot of things. All we need is a grant writer, and LP and Kristen doesn't have all the time in the world. So I just want to put that on as an agenda item or something we can look into, or is there any position available in the city that we can have somebody working just on the grants?
Sure, so maybe what I'll do is I'll add that section into staff comment to give you an update on like our grant process. I will definitely say we can always use help even in surfacing things that look interesting. Christian can share next month when we talk more about this grant, how much work it takes just to put one together. And I know Jennifer's been doing a lot of work, who's joining us as a member of the public today on her grants, so we've been really trying to like selectively prioritize, but I'm happy to share a little bit more about how we think about that and can always use more assistance and help targeting that.
Andrew,
Nothing for me.
thank you. Bernard,
Nothing.
Kathy,
No.
Don,
On Roy's earlier point about shade structures and construction, does the EPPP cover those issues?
It sort of does in terms of materials chosen for
Right.
certain things. It's pretty general though, I've found.
Hmm.
So there's not a lot of specifics. Or I would say there's more, I think about the EPPP as raising the floor as
Right.
opposed to setting a high ceiling. So I think for what we would hope to see from the shade structures, we might want to give them a little bit more of a star to shoot for, as opposed to what's in the EPP, which is a baseline. Does that answer your question?
EPPP is environmentally preferable purchasing policy. There.
That was very good.
We have worked on it for a long time.
Ken,
I don't know.
nothing, okay. Mike,
Nothing additional.
okay. I don't have anything either, so with that, I think it's time to adjourn the meeting. We will adjourn to the regular meeting of the commission to be held Tuesday, February 20th at 5:30 PM. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Yes.
Kathy, second,
My second.
okay, and by consensus, the meeting is adjourned, right?
Yes.